You are live on Instagram.
Okay. And Facebook is twirling.
Facebook is twirling.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, we are live.
Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Catherine. How you doing? How's things up on Twin Lakes there?
Hi, Mike.
There.
Hi, Karen.
Okay, so I guess we are all live now. Somebody give me a quick thumbs up in the comments section. So let me know if you can hear me okay, everything sounds coming okay, video's coming in okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Instagram.
It's great. We're getting a little bit of
I'm going to go
feedback coming back and forth. So welcome to our Saturday sip. So this is our second one. So today we're going to go through a couple of great wines. We've got our 2018 Rosé and our 2017 Brandy Reserve Meritage. And happy Easter to everyone. I know like a lot of you, normally we would be getting together with friends and family for a big turkey dinner tomorrow or on Monday, however your family celebrates. A lot of us are going to be doing through Facebook Live or FaceTime. This time, I'm going to stumble over a lot of words today. Sorry. For those of you that aren't going to be cooking this weekend, I just want to give a couple of shout outs to some local restaurants and some restaurants in our area that are doing some great things with pickup and home delivery. For Penticton, we've got Villa Rosa and the Hooded Merganser that both have special menus this weekend available for pickup or for home delivery. Make sure you call ahead for those guys because I know that their delivery times are a little bit scheduled. For those of you in the Vancouver area, we've got the Water Street Cafe down in Gastown that's doing a great Easter brunch. I think you still have time to get in on that. I know you have to do it a day in advance, so after you're finished watching me, make sure you call them. In Edmonton, actually last weekend, we would have been doing a winemaker's dinner there at the Butternut Tree, and I know they have a special menu coming up for Easter as well. If you're in Calgary, Foreign Concept is doing some great stuff with some nice pickup menus and delivery menus. And then if you're in the Oliver area, Oliver Eats is doing some great groceries as well as food pickup as well. Okay, I know that we've got people from all across the country watching, which is my face is going a little bit red. Special shout out to Don and Marty and all the way in Newfoundland who are watching with their friends and family. And Amy down in Florida. I know we have people watching in Mexico as well. And of course, in our local area and all that good stuff. So that's my preamble. First of all, we're going to talk to you about the 2018 vintage. Because our rosé did come from the 2018, and I'd like to give you a little bit of a vintage kind of recap or report. For 2018 was a pretty moderate vintage, which produced a lot of elegant wines with some restrained alcohol levels and some nice crisp acidity, fresh, clean, and very intense fruit that really should age well for the 2018 vintage. It has slightly later than average bud break due to a really high amount of snowpack. When that melted, a lot of moisture into the soils. So it delayed bud break by a little bit for that vintage. But again, Benoit had to do a lot of intense canopy management in the early spring to keep that to a minimum. It's the Okanagan. Got a little bit of smoke cover, which delayed development, and Veraison coming out just a little bit later, about a week later than our normal vintages. We had a very cool September, one of the coolest on record, so that kind of delayed the sugar development in the wines and retention of that nice crisp acidity, which makes these wines quite ageable. Gradual development of sugar and phenolic ripeness through our nice kind of nice extended fall that we get in the Okanagan. Overall, we had some nice, ripe tannins, crisp acidity, and very elegant wines. Again, a little bit lower alcohol than you would normally see in Okanagan reds and whites. Sorry, everything good? All good? Okay. First of all, we're going to talk about rosé. Rosé is probably, please, if you guys have the rosé and the Meritage, hopefully by now you've poured yourself a glass. You're enjoying it as I'm rambling on here. Rosé may be the oldest type of wine known to man. Or animal, I guess. Back in ancient times, it wasn't. We didn't see a lot of maceration time. It was so wines would be more. Even the reds would be more kind of what we see now with what we would call a rosé. So rosés incorporate some color from the skins, but not enough to be called a red. So there's three main ways that you can make a rosé: through skin contact, a method called saignée, or to bleed, and or blending, which isn't one that's normally used these days. So you have everything from the dry Provence style of rosés to the sweeter, more white Zinfandels or blushes that you get mostly out of North America. So skin contact, so we crush the grapes, allow it to remain on the skins for a very short period of time, anywhere from 2 to 20 hours is how that would normally be happening. Saignée, so that's early stage, so you would bleed off the first little bit in after any same time period, about 2 to 20 hours. And you bleed off that first little free run juice, and that concentrates your red wines as well as creates a rosé. Or the simplest method, which is blending. So you would mixing red and white. This is a little bit more frowned upon these days. And it's actually illegal in France. You cannot do it except for in the Champagne region. And even there, they kind of turn their nose down a little bit on that. Let's look at my notes. Okay. So after World War II, the Portuguese got really into rosés. That's where we get Mateus started coming in, and another one called Lancers, which were really, really popular. And then in the early 70s, White Zinfandel came along with Sutter House. No, I think it's called Sutter House. It's called Sutter something. And then starting in 2015, we started to see what I call the rosé revolution, where rosés started to become a little bit more serious, a little bit more wines made with purpose and on purpose. And there was a great thing that I saw when I was doing some research on this, when rosé went viral, and more guys started getting into drinking rosé. They started calling it brosé, which I think is awesome, and I'm going to steal that. And then with Provence rosés really coming into a lot more prominence with food pairing, especially Mediterranean garlic dishes, garlic aioli, and bouillabaisse, which is that kind of wonderful fish stew. So on to our rosé, and this is it here. And everything is backwards to me. Everybody see the label there? There we go. And there, get the other camera. We are live on both Facebook and on Instagram, so we have two cameras facing at me. So our 2018 rosé, and there it is in the glass. Nice pale, almost salmon color. Our rosé for 2018 is 100% Pinot Noir. Which is, we're new to the rosé revolution. This is only our third vintage of rosé. I'm just going to get my notes. There we go. Now, most of the fruit for this was sourced for us, which is something a little bit different. And it mostly came from Coston, although there is some of our own fruit in here as well. And mostly done in the saignée method, but there was a little bit of crush before that as well. only on the skins for about 4 hours. So that's why we get that really pale, really kind of salmon-y color coming through. Now, Pinot Noir is another great phrase that I came across doing some research today. Pinot Noir is the diva of the grape runway. I love that. I watched RuPaul's Drag Race, and you do that runway thing, or so that's how I get that. Bright acidity, soft, subtle aromas. Now for this one on the nose, man, I love rosé. I get a lot of like watermelon coming through, a little bit of melon. I get a little bit of crabapple or pink grapefruit. And again, that kind of nice crisp strawberry, raspberry, kind of red fruit. Little bit of wet stone coming through, as well as some rose petal and just a little hint of spice coming through on the back.
I totally agree. That's a great description. Yeah. You're getting a few comments from here. We've got Marty's is going, that's awesome. He loved the men in rosé comment. And Don, no wonder why it's one of my faves. Thanks, Don.
Yeah. And again, like the wines we did last week, those notes that you're getting on the nose, especially, I'm really getting that kind of minerality coming through on the nose. Just kind of really punches you right on the front. They're followed through on the palate as well. You get a little bit more of that kind of almost wild strawberry note, just a slightly underripe strawberry where it's just a nice kiss of sun coming through. And that nice acidity that just makes your mouth water and just like waiting for that next sip. Food pairing, pretty easy. And it's like a summer, just sunshine in a glass kind of idea. Light salads, pastas, seafood, just that bouillabaisse kind of thing coming through. Grilled fish, mild cheeses. First sunny day on the deck. Don't really need food. Just some good friends. Any comments about the rosé? Oh, in this time of social distancing, in addition to food pairings, my Netflix pairing for this is Grace and Frankie. And I'm new to Grace and Frankie. Catherine, our director, kind of has gotten me into that. So that's my Netflix pairing for the rosé. This is a bright and cheerful and they are so funny. So that's my.
And they would probably love this.
Yeah.
They would be.
Oh yes.
They'd be all over a rosé.
Okay, so peanut gallery is quiet this week.
Mm-hmm. Lots of people joining in, so thank you.
We're going to move on to Meritage. Quick thing, thumbs up in the comments or a little comment. Who knows what Meritage is? What Meritage means? I don't see anything there.
Not yet. Takes a minute.
Not yet.
Our audience is just like very knowledgeable. They know.
So Meritage was formed in 1988 by a small group of Sonoma and Napa vintners who had grown a little bit frustrated with the labeling laws and everything having to be 75% of a varietal. So the association that they kind of formed, the Meritage Association, it wasn't called Meritage yet, held a contest, and they had 6,000 entries for this contest. And the winning gentleman mashed up two words, merit and heritage. So merit being best of, and heritage to pay homage to Bordeaux that originated these great blends. And he got 2 bottles of the first 10 vintages of every winery that was licensed to use that name. So it is a trademark name. So you have to belong to the Meritage Society to use that name. 1985 was the first vintage. So even though it was formed in 1988, first vintage was a 1985 vintage from Dry Creek Vineyard in Napa, I believe. 1993 was the first Canadian vintage of Meritage, making it an international term. So we were the first country outside of the US, outside of California, that were able to use that. And that was done by Harry McWaters. Yeah. Okay. Harry McWaters, very special and dear to most of us here in the BC wine industry. I like to think of him as the godfather of BC wine, who sadly passed away last year, at the end of last year. And I started my career with See You Later Ranch when it was still under the Sumac Ridge Group. And so I can still remember my first training at See You Later, and we had See You Later and Sumac Ridge together, and Harry did his Magic of Meritage dinner. And it was just amazing to hear him talk and hear his passion about the Meritage blends. So like Bordeaux, we have the same rules and regulations in Meritage as they do in Bordeaux. So there's only a small number of varietals that you're allowed to use in a red Meritage, which is what we're talking about here. So Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Carmenère, and then there's another one that I can never remember.
Syrah was recently added in the last 8 months.
Okay, that's news to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that you can use Syrah now. But for Noble Ridge, our first Meritage blend was in 2003. And I believe we produced 400 cases of that vintage. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got it.
Yeah. Now, last week I talked about the clones that we were using for the Pinot Noir. Unfortunately, I can't do that for the Meritage blend because they're unknown for a lot of them. The Merlot from Block 4 is clone 118, but I can't find any information on it. So I'm actually just going to talk about the varietals, which I found some really interesting things out about that this week. So Merlot is actually not as ancient as people think it is. It's been around for hundreds of years, but it is actually created from a chance crossing of Cabernet Franc and Madeleine Noire de la Charente. And I'm butchering that, but you can all let me know in the comments how badly I pronounce that. Madeleine Noire de Charente was considered extinct until just recently. They found an unknown vine in Saint Suliac in a monastery. And that vineyard had been abandoned for hundreds of years. The vineyard actually had been abandoned for over 200 years. So that vine was ancient. Merlot is the second most planted black grape in the world. Second only to the one that we're going to talk about next. For that grape, it's very versatile. So it's early budding, but mid-ripening. So about 3 weeks earlier than Cabernet Sauvignon. It's not too fussy about its growing conditions and soils. So it will actually thrive in a wide variety of areas. And its job in a blend is to flush out the texture and fleshiness of the wine, as well as adding some roundness to the blend. The other main grape is Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, this is a chance crossing between Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Franc's he's a little bit promiscuous. He's created a few different varietals. likely happened in the Pyrenees, so in Bordeaux, a couple thousand years ago. So it is the most widely planted black variety in the world, with about 300,000 hectares in the world planted to Cabernet Sauvignon. It's quite picky though. It's late budding and late ripening. So it really needs those really intense degree days over a long period of time to get really ripe and really full. High tannin, that's its job in the blend, is to create some really nice tannins and richness. So 2017 Meritage. I was talking to Benoit this week about this wine because it's been a while since I tasted it. And he, there we go. There we go. Can we see it? There we go. And show the other camera down. There we go. Everybody has it. Good. So as I was saying, I was talking to Benoit earlier this week about the 2017 vintage. And he thinks it's his second favorite vintage since he started winemaking. Second only to the iconic 2015.
I was going to say, when?
Yeah. So this wine, I talked a little bit about the 2017 vintage last week. So really elegant wines that are, going to be around for at least a good decade. For this vintage, serving temperature, again, we don't want it 20 degrees. We don't want it, room temperature. So I like it somewhere around 17, 18 degrees is where kind of my sweet spot is for a Meritage blend. This vintage is, I'll give you the breakdown, 73% Merlot, 23% Cabernet Sauvignon, and just a whisper of Malbec and Cabernet Franc, about 2% each. Starting a few years ago, we started experimenting with adding just a touch of Malbec and Cabernet Franc into the blend just to see what that would do to the Merlot and the Cabernet Sauvignon. I spent 15 months in barrel. 75% of those barrels were French, 25% American, and about 40% new barrels. So this has got some structure to it. So you've got it in front of you, give yourself a sniff. Yeah.
We have a comment from Mike Roberts, my go-to wine. I like
yes.
that.
Yes. Well, Meritage is where Noble Ridge started. We do 3 Meritage in a good year. We'll do our Noble Meritage, which is, I don't like the word entry level because it is an amazing wine.
How would you describe it?
Economical.
Yeah.
Economical.
Amazing value.
Yes, amazing value. And then we do our Reserve Meritage, which is from our home vineyard, so from the Noble Ridge vineyard. So blocks 2, 3, and 4. I had to think about that. So you guys can't see, but just at the end of the lawn is where block 2. And then we have block 3, which are 2 and 3 are both Cabernet Sauvignon. And block 3 we affectionately call Jim's block. Since we finally, block 2. Wow, God, I'm getting that wrong for like the past year. Now that we finally convinced Jim to fully retire from his first job, which was in law, we've given him block 2 to look after. So he does all of the viticulture for block 2. Actually, that way we can contain him as well. I may not have a job on Monday. So blocks 2 and 3 are both Cabernet Sauvignon, and then block 4 is Merlot. So these are some of the older Bordeaux blocks in the valley. I'm not going to say they're the oldest, not by any stretch, but some of the oldest. Most of it planted in 1986. So 2 years before the big BC pullout, and then some of it planted in 1999 as well. Okay, so everybody's got the glass in front of them. Get your nose right in there because this one's got some amazing, complex aromas. First thing that hits me is that kind of black plum. So just like really ripe, rich, dark plum note. Get a little bit of black currant or cassis. Everybody likes to use the word cassis. I use black currant just because everybody knows what a black currant is. I get just a hint of clove, a little bit of spice. Then you get that little bit of oak on the nose as well. And then we get into the taste. So this one's a little bit different, where some of those notes that you get on the nose aren't quite pulling through on the palate. I do get blackberry, lots of like a rich blackberry. Get that black currant as well. I get a hint of forest floor, so a little bit of kind of earthiness. And then a little hint of licorice and dark chocolate, which perfect for Easter.
Of course.
Yes. So everybody has those Purdy's dark chocolates coming in for Easter.
I've got a couple comments here if you'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
Our good friend T.D. Mulligan is asking, can I taste and do radio at the same time?
Why not?
I support
Give it a shot and let us know.
I would say,
Yeah.
I've already written, of course.
Yeah.
And we also got some interesting comments, if I may. I hope Sid is okay with me reading his comments. Sid Cross has written in and likes the presentation. Well done. He's just opened an old Meritage of Noble Ridge 2007. 14.4 alcohol of the Bordeaux style of maturing cherry fruit with 14 months in oak. Has interesting tertiary aromas of some complexity with softened textures and quite delicious. Look forward to trying the 2017. Keep up the excellent winemaking. Isn't that fun? Thank you, Sid.
Thanks, Sid. And TD.
And
Yes. So those of you that don't know who Sid Cross and Terry David Mulligan are, they're some really amazing wine writers and huge advocates of the BC wine industry. And so awesome to have them join us today. Yeah, now I'm going to get a little bit more nervous.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. As with all of our reserve reds, we do bottle age these for a year before we release them. So this one just got released at the same time, actually a little bit later than the Pinot Noir was released. So this one's only been out. It's not really in the marketplace yet. So if you guys have it at home, you're one of the first. Awesome. Oh, here we go with the awesome again. I'll tell you a little story about awesome later. So those tannins they've started to soften just a touch. They're quite silky on the palate. I really like how that, you can open this bottle and it's not going to just like knock you over the head with tannin. Food pairings. So with a big or bolder red, the kind of the go-tos are kind of like that roast beef, rack of lamb, smoked and aged cheeses. If you want to have this more toward the end of the meal, I know some people aren't a fan of red wine and dark chocolate, but a dark chocolate, almost like a lava cake, but it's got to be really, 70% cocoa. Like it's got to be a dark chocolate to go with this. Yes.
Someone taught me a trick was to do a dark chocolate mousse, because then you get the heft of that dark chocolate flavor, but the lightness on the palate.
Yeah.
So that balances out some of the heavier aspects of the wine.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like lava cake, because you've got
Those
that kind of
things.
oozy,
Yeah.
rich, dark chocolate coming through. My Netflix pairing for this, and I'm going to show my age on this, is Dune.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a while
Yeah,
ago.
they just released it on Netflix. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi. This is kind of a dark, brooding wine, and you kind of get those darkness in Dune, as well as some of your crime dramas would go nicely with this as well.
Yeah. You're getting a few comments from Instagram. Red wine and dark chocolate is delicious. Of
Yeah.
course, here, and don't be nervous, Preston. This has become our Saturday date night. Being in
Yes.
we are enjoying figuring out
Yes.
a meal pairing prior, so that's fun.
Okay, on to the recipe. I'm not actually going to put it together this week. If anybody that follows me on Instagram, at OK Wine Guy, gonna get my own plug in there. We did post a little bit about this on Noble Ridge's Instagram as well. I had to do 2 recipe labs for this because the recipe that I originally had wanted to do, unfortunately, Flo took with her to the grave. So I was trying to recreate it, and I had a tough go of it. And then talking to Mikos, shout out to Mikos, I know he's watching. And turned out I was trying to combine 2 different recipes. So I ended up having to start over again. But turkey tetrazzini, I know some of us are still going to have turkey dinner, be it, on FaceTime rather than in person. So we're going to have some leftovers. So the recipe that I've done so I did it more of as a pasta as opposed to kind of a baked casserole dish. I'm not Italian, but my stomach is. I'm going to put this recipe as I've created it up on our website tomorrow. But I'm just going to go through the ingredients. I used about 10 ounces of mushrooms. Use a combination if you like. I used button mushrooms as well as some cremini, but you can use some porcini in there as well. Some unsalted butter, just shy of 2 cups of milk, 2 cups of chicken broth, about half a cup of dry white wine. I used our Pinot Grigio because I had, anybody that knows me knows I usually have Pinot Grigio in the fridge. I used egg noodles as opposed to angel hair pasta, which is what Flo would use, but I couldn't find any. About 3 cups I used chicken. For this recipe, used turkey. About a cup of frozen peas, about a medium onion, 2 stalks of celery. And I didn't do the toppings. I didn't do the oven thing. I also used a medium onion, and I think that was it.
Love.
Sort of,
Main ingredient.
yeah. And some, fresh herbs and spices and dried herbs and spices. So what I did is I did sweated off the onions and celery and garlic. For the garlic, gotta have garlic. First, I'm a huge fan of cast iron skillets, so I use that. Took those out, put it in a separate bowl, started off with the mushrooms, sweated those down so most of the liquid is gone. Put those into another bowl, or actually, put them in with the onions. Then I started in on the sauce. So I put together the milk, the chicken broth, and the white wine with all my herbs and spices. Use what you like. Reduced it down by half. Cooked the egg noodles, and then just kind of put everything together in a pot. And then if you wanted to make the more traditional turkey tetrazzini, you would actually put some breadcrumbs with some Parmesan, mix all that together, throw it in the oven for 30 minutes at 350. So everything gets to kind of heated through. Okay. Oh, yes. This is what the end product looks like. There we go. Oh, no, it's dropping. There we go. Can we see it on the other?
Delicioso.
There we go. Ollie really enjoyed it. So did I. So. And then you can, throw it into a nice little bowl. Then you get a little bit fancy. This stuff, this pottery actually comes from Hillborn, which is a company that we've been dealing with for many years. When did we first start with Hillborn?
Gosh,
Like
I'm gonna say
5 years?
I would say 5.
5 years ago? Independent potter out of Ontario that our lovely Leslie discovered on one of her trips back there. Okay. Comments, questions?
We've got one comment from our Facebook team, Darren. He's got a 2015 Reserve Meritage red fridge. I was going to hold for a bit longer, but watching this, I don't think it's going to remain after tonight.
Yes, yeah, the 2015, that was the vintage of a decade or a lifetime. That vintage may not come again in our lifetime.
Got a comment
Yes.
from Dawn. She said smoked steak with beet, honey pecans, and fig chev salad. Brings out the oak and bold berry notes. We'll have to check out your recipe. Ooh, girl, when are you cooking for us?
Yeah.
No kidding. Wow.
So yes. So next week, we will have a special guest. Next week would have been how many years for the Classic?
The fourth annual.
It would have been our 4th annual Noble Ridge Golf Classic. And unfortunately, due to the world situation, that's not happening. So we have called upon the man, the legend, Jim Dandria, to do the tasting next week. I'm still going to host a little bit, do some recipes and that kind of stuff, but I'm going to leave it up to Jim to do the tough work, the tasting.
Well, his recipe is probably going to be a piece of meat. Would that be
Well, we had a couple of comments last week to do some vegan or vegetarian. So I'll be doing a recipe lab this week, probably on Tuesday or on Thursday. So follow me on Instagram. I'm going to try to come up with a recipe. I've got an idea in my head of something that it's going to go with these wines. But stay tuned because it's not fully formed yet. But the wines next week will be our 2018 Pinot Grigio. There we go. Get it into the other camera. And a very special wine to us. It's a series of wines that we started last year with the first 2 Noble Knights wines. And so we are actually going to be going over the Stone Vintage Cabernet. It's kind of hard to see that label, I think. Maybe there we go. And onto the other camera this way. Down. Over. There we go. Okay. Normally, this wine would only be available to our roundtable and to anybody that was coming into our premium lounge. But for starting now until the week after the tasting, I've made it available to everyone. So if you go to our website and purchase these wines as well as the Rosé and the Meritage, you've got 3 bottles in your basket. We're going to take the shipping off. So it'll be complimentary shipping as long as you've got 3 bottles in your basket and you've got one of these 4 wines. So
That sounds like fun.
yes. Everybody that knows me knows that the Pinot Grigio is kind of my go-to. So I love them all. And it's been a hot minute since I've tried the Stone Vintage. So yeah. I'm excited to try that again next week.
Well, in anticipation of next week, I see some comments on Facebook that Ron, the defending champion of the Noble Ridge Golf Classic, is commenting. Apparently he's sad that it's not happening, but his wife has said he has wine, he will survive. So hopefully they will join us next week. And
we got to get them in on that.
Yeah.
I think that's
So yeah, we did have a comment last week about the 2013 Meritage, about when to drink it. I did do a little bit of research on that, and unfortunately, I didn't catch your name. Going through the 2013 vintage, and we did a King's Ransom Meritage on the 2013, which is not something that we do every year. I think it's been it's the last 2 vintages we haven't done a King's Ransom, have we? 18 or 19?
Yeah, I don't think we have.
Yeah. Actually, we don't know about 19 yet. But so you've got at least another 5 years, I think, on that one, if not more. I didn't have a bottle that I could actually try, but just going over Benoit's notes and some vintage notes on 2013, you've definitely got some time. Some nice, elegant tannins coming through on that. So, okay. Anything
I think we're
else? Okay. So happy Easter, everyone. Hopefully the Easter Bunny is good to you and doesn't hide your wonderful dark chocolate too hard, and it's nice and accessible. Support your local businesses, and we will see you next Saturday.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Bye.
Okay. There we go. Oops, and live video.